Well, joining us on the broadcast is Ambassador Meera Shankar. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am. Thanks for speaking to us here at News9 Live. Of course, what we're also picking up is that, according to the White House official, now President Joe Biden has in fact spoken with former President Donald Trump. But we need to put this assassination attempt in perspective. Very quickly, ma'am, first and foremost, does this change the U.S. election for good? This is happening right on the heels of the U.S. presidential race. We're looking at that close competition to take place in November.
Well, I think it will generate more sympathy for Trump. But we have to see if it translates into votes. It's too early to say anything, particularly because the Democratic Party is still so confused about who its candidate is going to be. So I suppose we have to wait for this whole process to play out. But certainly it would increase public sympathy for Trump.
Well, Ambassador, I'm sure you woke up to the same news as well. We're picking up visuals of empty, rally places in Butler Park in Pennsylvania. And of course, we also know that United States is a heavily polarized country. Do you think it's going to vitiate the atmosphere further? Will it add to the division? Already on social media, there's a clear divide that is coming out.
Well, I think many Democratic leaders have condemned the assassination attempt, and President Biden has underlined that this is just unacceptable. Political violence is unacceptable and has no place in US politics, and that this deserves to be condemned by everybody, and that the country should unite. It shows that this kind of polarization and division is dangerous for the country. But again, it's not something unknown in US history. I think US history has a record of political violence.
Well, absolutely right. I mean, Ronald Reagan, JFK, all those names come to light. And Donald Trump has certainly added his name to that particular list of thwarted assassination attempts, not assassinated U.S. presidents. Ambassador Shankar, now does Joe Biden, the current President of the United States, does Joe Biden stand a chance? We've looked at his recent gaffes. People are now saying maybe he's not fit to run for the office of the president. And you earlier spoke about the sympathy vote as well.
Well, again, as I said, we have to wait for it to play out. We don't know if Biden is going to retain his nomination or he's going to step aside in favor of somebody else. Though at the moment he continues to say that he remains the candidate. But I think we have to wait for this process to play out because there is increasing pressure on him to step aside on grounds of age.
All right. Ma'am, if I were to jump the gun over here, what will Donald Trump's re-election mean for the world? I mean, you're the right person to be asking this question. You yourself have served as India's ambassador to the United States between 2009 and 2011. What do you think his re-election would mean for the entire world?
Look, for India, I think it doesn't make that much difference because there's a bipartisan consensus between Republicans and Democrats that they want to strengthen the relationship with India. But yes, there are nuances and differences in policy approach, and those could affect us because Trump would be more protectionist. He has promised to impose a 10% tariff across the board on all US imports from all countries. He's promised to impose punitive tariffs on China. There could be a change in policy with regard to Ukraine, though I think he's kind of moderated his stance from saying he will stop all aid to Ukraine to saying that, this large assistance is something which will need to be relooked. So I don't know if he will adhere to his original position on Ukraine or soften it. But yes, there's extreme apprehension in Europe about his election because of this. On Israel, he might give them a freer hand. Biden has been putting pressure on Netanyahu to agree to a ceasefire and negotiations, and eventually negotiations for a two-state solution. But I think President Trump is likely to give Netanyahu a free hand. For China, he could be tougher, but there could also be an element of unpredictability, in his policies as there was last time. So I think Russia might be happier because there's a possibility of a negotiated end to the Ukraine conflict. But across the world, there is some anxiety about the level of unpredictability or instability that his presidency could infuse into global politics.
Well, so three in total, besides the former president. Ambassador Meera Shankar continues to be with us. Ambassador, you've got the Secret Service, you've got the CIA, you've got the FBI as well over there. You could see all of them on various rooftops. On the intelligence failure front, what would your opinion be?
Look, I think it's almost impossible to really provide 100% security to leaders. But the attempt failed. I think you've got to look at that the Secret Service was quick enough to surround Trump, and the assassin was shot dead, so he could not do greater damage. So I think at some level, the response of the Secret Service and the security measures has been good. At another level, you could say the fact that someone, managed to shoot and injure a candidate physically shows that there were some lapses, and I suppose those will be gone into. We can't prejudge what happened. And also, they will investigate if this was a one-off person, with his own issues, or it was part of some larger objective. So I think we have to wait for this to unfold. And some of the assassination attempts, like that of JFK, I think people still have question marks about what really happened, and there are copious conspiracy theories about it. So I don't know if it will ever be settled.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, America and conspiracy theories, they certainly do go hand in hand. Ambassador, I do want to throw some light on the gun culture as well, because it is ironic that Donald Trump, one of the loudest voices that were advocating for the safety and for gun culture to remain and stay, has now been, there's an assassination attempt on him per se. And just to apprise the viewers as well, Thomas Matthew Crooks, he has been identified as the suspect who shot at Donald Trump at his Pennsylvania rally. Now, Crooks was a 20-year-old from Bethel Park in Pennsylvania, which was about 40 miles south of the Butler rally. Ambassador, will this bring attention back to the gun culture in America now that Trump himself is a victim of it?
Well, I hope it does, but the Republican Party has a very strong position allowing, unrestrained access to weapons to individual citizens in America. And, it's part of the American frontier mentality also. When people were moving westward, there was no organized administration, and so it was each man and his gun as he settled new lands. So that's very much part of the American psyche. But I think recent public shootings, especially in schools and of children, have left, public opinion increasing in favor of some kind of restraint on access to guns, and especially, assault rifles or weapons which can shoot very fast and shoot long bursts. So I hope that it's an issue which will come to the fore again. But the National Rifle Association and the Republican Party have a very strong position on this, and I'm not sure that this is going to change it.
Well, and this is happening at a time when the United States and the population itself is so polarized. We've seen time and again the mass shootings that have taken place in Joe Biden's tenure as well. About the extremes at which the United States is, the common people's imagination, the extremes at which they function. Could you help the viewers understand that a little bit?
Well, I think that America has never been so politically polarized as it is today. And if we go by historical experience, then whenever there is this degree of political polarization, you see a spurt in political violence. The last time there was this huge spurt in political violence was in the 60s when the civil rights issue was tearing American society apart, with President Kennedy and his brother Bob Kennedy seeking to enforce civil rights and end segregation, and obviously, entrenched parts of white society opposing it. And you saw the assassination of JFK, President Kennedy, of his brother Bob Kennedy, of Martin Luther King, of some of the assassins who were involved in these attempts. So it was a period of great turbulence. And you go back again to the abolition of slavery with Abraham Lincoln, when Lincoln was assassinated. And again, you see U.S. tearing apart over this issue, and with a whole civil war which was unleashed between the North and the South. But there have also been periods when there's been a broad consensus, even though there have been differences between the two parties. So, but I think right now, especially because of social media, the differences between the two parties have never been as extreme in recent decades as they are today.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Because, I mean, from a very personal example, I was on social media just a short while ago, and you had a member of the black community in the United States wielding a gun, supporting Donald Trump, saying he's a diehard Republican, and anybody, especially from the Black Lives Matter movement, if they are going to come out, well, he's going to take matters into his own hand. And that's the situation at the moment. You know what, Ambassador? We have a quick report on exactly what happened so that people understand, for those that woke up to this news and don't really know essentially what happened. Donald Trump, there was an assassination bid. It was thwarted, it was foiled, it wasn't successful, if I could put it that way. But Ambassador, the pictures that we're showing on our screens, I would want you to put them in perspective as well. Just a short while ago, you had the NATO summit. You've had that debate that's already happened. Poor performance by Joe Biden at both those places. And now, you rightly pointed out, the sympathy factor is going to be working in favor of Donald Trump. And he's going to do all he can to extract the right kind of political mileage from it as well. From a political standpoint, the optics in front of us, the conundrum cacophony at this particular rally, the conundrum between the Democrats in terms of backing Joe Biden, where do you think this November election race is heading?
Well, I don't want to say anything as yet because, there's still months to go before the election, and that's a long time in politics. You saw George Bush Sr. win the Iraq War, and constrain Saddam Hussein, and yet shortly thereafter he lost the elections. So you really can't say. I think several months are a long time in politics. But yes, this increases the sympathy factor for Trump, who was already ahead of Biden in some of the swing states, which are going to basically determine the outcome of the election, the 5 or 6 swing states.